when you don't know what you want in adulthood. Now, this is not cookie cutter, one size fits all. I'm not claiming this as truth or as fact, but there is something very important to look at for at least many people that don't know what they want in adulthood. Let's dive way back to childhood and let's look at the dynamic of enmeshment, and specifically in childhood when a child does not get to have healthy individuation and differentiation and instead ends up getting fucking enmeshed in a dysfunctional family system with mommy and daddy, right? Um, Now, from what I've learned, enmeshment is the very first thing that happens because obviously when we are in the womb of the mother, we are biologically enmeshed with them, right? Hopefully, after that, once birth has taken place and, a couple years in, um, individuation, differentiation, healthy boundaries take place. However, not everyone gets that. And when people don't get that, they usually end up just staying enmeshed, right? And in family systems where healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation don't take place, usually even more fucked up, unhealthy dynamics take place, and the child ends up being deeply enmeshed with the parents. And in many exceedingly dysfunctional and unhealthy ways, like parentification, right? Um, I'm sure that many of us have heard stories about how a child ends up being like a fucking trophy child for the parents, right? To fill the voids of insecurity for the parents, right? Well, that has a lot to do with what it is that I am talking about and exploring here, right? Um, Again, now I'm not saying that this is cookie cutter, one size fits all, right? And that this is absolute and this is the truth and this is fact. Um, Children, however, that don't get to experience themselves in a healthy way with healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation early on in childhood tend to not really know who they are. Why? Well, because all three of those healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation lead to autonomy in an individual, but not only autonomy, a more healthy, developed sense of self that is separate from other, right? People that develop a healthy sense of self early on in life, they tend to know who they are and what they want. They have been allowed the time and the space to play and get to know themselves, right? And so, got an itch on my back. And so, the fascinating thing is that I have been this way, by the way, and I have met people that also don't know what they want in adulthood. Now, I'm not saying that you should have had it figured out by now. No, 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 no. No, that's not what this is about. No. But I think that it's important to know who you are by a certain age. And if you don't, I would look at childhood, right? In adulthood, I think it's healthy to know who you are and what you want, right? And again, like I was saying before, got an itch on my back. Um, like I was saying before, if you don't, there are markers from childhood that can tell you why that's the case, right? Now, let me make this very clear and say that I'm not getting on the bandwagon of you need to have it all figured out by this time or that time. I don't believe in that. I really don't. But what I do believe in, because I understand that it's real and it exists, is childhood fucking trauma. And in this case, specifically, enmeshment trauma, right? Um, people, for instance, like codependents, I've had experience with this. They don't really have a well-formed and healthy sense of self. If they did, they wouldn't be codependent, right? And codependency usually says, I'm enmeshed with mommy or daddy or both. I am dependent on their opinion of me. I don't know this, but I'm a trophy child. And then until I wake up from being a trophy child, with all of these burdens and all of this pressure and all of this bullshit that I never asked for, nothing's going to change. And I'm not even going to know that anything is weird. Right? It's fascinating. There's a clear contrast between getting healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation in childhood and not getting it. There's a clear contrast and a clear difference and a clear outcome for both. There is. That's just the way that it is. Somebody that was allowed to develop individuation and differentiation within themselves, and they were taught healthy boundaries from an early age by a person, an object that is healthy, they're going to go on at probably an earlier point in their life and develop a healthier sense of self with a clear identity and understanding of who they are and what it is that they want. I was actually, this itch in my back does not want to go away. I was actually watching a video the other day, and I was listening to a woman ramble on about how children. It was basically like it was a very 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 traditional way of going about things. Um, I would argue that I'm not a traditional dude, especially when it comes to like, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna eat what I made for you. Well, what if the child's allergic? You want to kill your child too? Right? I've heard people talk about how children should not be allowed to make their own decisions. Oh, really? I mean, don't get me wrong. It's important to teach a child, healthy boundaries, and healthy boundaries consists of, no, don't run out into the road because you could get hit by a car, right? A healthy boundary is, however, not, I'm going to control what my child wears because I say so. Uh, no, that is a boundary violation. That teaches them that there are certain clothes that they shouldn't wear. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to say that, there are. Listen. Maybe the clothes and that level of self-expression is a different topic that we don't. What I'm trying to say here is that if you don't encourage a child to make decisions for themselves, right, they're not going to build self-confidence, and it's going to be much more challenging for them to make decisions, right? And so this example of making decisions is really important, right? Because especially for this topic here that I'm talking about, if an individual has not received healthy boundaries, they have not individuated and they have not differentiated. Let's say, for instance, they're codependent, right? Um, they're going to have a much more difficult time later on in adult life making decisions for themselves. And this goes back to what I was talking about in terms of forming a healthy sense of self, a healthy identity, knowing who they are, knowing what it is that they want, right? I mean, it's a real thing that a lot of people don't know, one, who the fuck they are, and it's not even because they are, I don't know, personality disordered. People that have personality disordered, people that don't have, people that have a personality disorder, right? Like NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, BPD. Look at the borderline personality disorder. Look at the word there, personality disorder. Their personality is underdeveloped. It's all over the fucking place. It doesn't have any like true, seriously developed form. Right? But that's extreme. That's the extreme end. Let's look at somebody who's like codependent, for instance. That's kind of like a less extreme example, right? Anybody that does not have a developed sense of self, right? They were not taught healthy boundaries. They did not receive healthy individuation. Well, I mean, there's no such thing as really unhealthy. I don't know. Anyway, they did not receive individuation. They did not receive differentiation, right? They did not learn self and other, right? They also were not taught, or they were not encouraged to make decisions on their own, right? You don't do somebody a service by making decisions for them up until they're a fucking adult. You don't do somebody a service not allowing themselves to make decisions for them. That's where self-confidence comes from. That's how you instill confidence in an individual. You allow them to make decisions for themselves. You encourage them to make decisions for themselves. And then when they make decisions, you support it. You know, a lot of parents out there, and I get it, I'm not bashing anyone. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. But it is unhealthy, and it leads to a very specific way of how an individual in adulthood develops. That is fact. From what I've learned, there are clinical studies and research, right? Um, so if you don't know what you want in adulthood, it's likely because you're enmeshed with mommy and daddy, and they never really gave you the chance to be able to, you know, make decisions for yourself and build confidence in that arena, right? This goes back to building identity within the self, building boundaries, um, knowing the difference between self and other, right? Let me finish off with this because this needs to be very fucking clear. Um, if you are or were enmeshed with mommy and daddy, it is likely that like everything that you do in life, specifically in regards to how your relationships go, is on the basis of pleasing mommy and daddy. You're just projecting mommy and daddy onto everyone else, right? Mommy and daddy taught you that in order to be a good person, in order to receive love, in order to receive validation and approval and worth, you needed to please them. This is the element of enmeshment that is really fucked up. I mean, every element of enmeshment is fucked up, but like really, like talk about lacking in individual autonomy, right? This is the real shit right here. If you are enmeshed with mommy and daddy, you are probably holding relationships in your life where you are pleasing mommy and daddy through these relationships because you didn't get the healthy boundaries, you didn't get to individuate and differentiate, learn the difference between self and other, learn what is your responsibility, learn what isn't your responsibility. Um, and so you're just repeating a pattern of pleasing mommy and daddy through all these relationships that you hold, right? And it's not healthy because um, that is you lacking a sense of self. That is you lacking a clear identity. That is you lacking an understanding of what it is that you actually want because you're still enmeshed with mommy and daddy. You're still trying to please mommy and daddy. You think it's your responsibility because of what they taught you to please mommy and daddy through all of your relationships, through everything that you do. You've identified that it's your role to just please mommy and daddy, and that's it. Oh, what do I do? Do I do what I actually want to do, or do I do what it is that I've been comfortable and familiar with, which is pleasing mommy and daddy through all these relationships and this job and this university and this marriage? What do I do? I don't know what to do. I think you do know what to do, but you're so enmeshed with these people that you're doing to please them rather than doing what it is that you actually want. And the reason that you don't do what it is that you actually want is because they have shamed you and they have obligated you and they have guilted you fucking out of it because they're narcissistic and their fucking needs come first. That's how you learn that.